Imagine being condemned to eternally repeat the same task, without reward, without conclusion, without relief. Climbing a mountain while pushing a colossal stone, only to see it roll back to the starting point every time you approach the top. This is the punishment of Sisyphus, the mythological character who dared to challenge the gods. And for that, he was sentenced to live the cruelest cycle that human imagination could conceive. Purposeless repetition, an endless routine, an eternity of futile effort. It is easy to look at this image and see only tragedy. But Albert Camus saw something else. He saw there the purest reflection of the human condition. For Camus, Sisyphus is more than a condemned man. He is a symbol. And more than that, he is a hero. Not in the romantic or epic sense, but in the most brutal and honest sense possible. Sisyphus is the man who faces his absurd reality and chooses to confront it without illusion. He does not believe that the stone will one day stay at the top. He does not deceive himself with promises of liberation. He knows that the punishment is eternal, and it is precisely for this reason that he is free. Because he understands the extent of his tragedy, accepts his fate, and yet continues to push. Camus writes, "One must imagine Sisyphus happy." And this phrase, at first glance so provocative, is an existential punch. How could someone be happy in such a desperate condition? But this is where the genius of the metaphor lies. Sisyphus's happiness is not in winning. It is in not giving up. It is in the moment he descends the mountain and, knowing that the stone will fall again, chooses, nonetheless, to start over. He chooses to push once more, not out of faith, not out of hope, but out of decision. This act, repeated eternally, ceases to be punishment and transforms into affirmation. The awareness of futility does not destroy Sisyphus. The absence of meaning becomes the very ground from which his freedom springs. He takes ownership of his fate. He claims the stone as his own. He transforms punishment into choice, and in doing so, he transcends. He becomes greater than the absurd task imposed upon him. Camus does not present Sisyphus to resign us to suffering. He does so to show that true heroism lies in lucidity, in conscious persistence, in the refusal to flee from reality, no matter how harsh it may be. We all have our stones. We carry weights that return, failures that repeat, routines that seem to lead nowhere. But what defines us is not the inevitability of the fall. It is the decision to climb again. Sisyphus represents the human being who, in the face of the absurd, does not flee, does not delude himself, does not surrender. He resists. And this resistance, even without the promise of glory, is worthy. It is whole. It is beautiful, because it arises from the deepest recognition of reality and, at the same time, from the refusal to be crushed by it. This metaphor is more than philosophy. It is a model for life, a call to authenticity. The stone will continue to fall, but the way you push it can transform everything. The act of carrying with awareness, with style, with intensity, makes the absurd task a sacred ritual, an affirmation of your existence. But if meaning is not in the end, how can it arise? How to live knowing that the stone will always fall? How to find purpose when there is no given purpose? It is in this gap, between the fall and the ascent, that the opportunity to create meaning arises. And it is exactly this that we will explore in the next part. The universe owes us nothing, no manual, no explanation, no illuminated path. It simply exists, vast, silent, indifferent. And for many, this realization is unbearable. Because we have been taught from an early age to believe that life has a purpose waiting to be discovered, that there is a mission, a destiny, a hidden meaning that, once revealed, will justify all our pains. But Camus shatters this illusion with the coldness of someone who has already crossed the desert. Meaning is not given. It is not hidden in sacred books, nor written in the stars. It simply does not exist. And precisely for that reason, it can be created. This is the most powerful and most frightening proposition that Camus offers us. If there is no universal purpose, then everything depends on us. We are the creators, not of an absolute truth, but of an intimate, personal, conscious meaning. Every act, no matter how small, becomes an affirmation, a refusal of emptiness, a shout against the absurd. This means that even among the ruins, we can build something, and not just anything. We can build a life that truly belongs to us. But this requires a leap of responsibility, because we can no longer outsource who we are. We cannot say, life wanted it this way, or God wanted it this way, or society pushed me into this. From the moment you recognize the absurd, everything you choose to do, or not do, becomes your creation. It is you who decides what matters, what is worth your time, your effort, your affection, your vital energy. And this freedom, although often terrifying, is the only possible path to an authentic existence. This is not an invitation to chaos. It is not live any way you want. It is the opposite. It is live with intention, live with presence. Live knowing that every gesture counts, not because it will be remembered for generations, but because it is all you have right now. To love someone deeply, to listen attentively, to create art, to defend a cause, to cultivate silence, to take care of the body, the mind, others. All of this can be sacred, if chosen with awareness. Camus calls us to live as artists of our own existence, and like every artist, we need to face the raw material, suffering, failure, fear, loneliness, not to glorify them, but to transform them. Because even in pain there is power, even in collapse there is beauty, even in death there is dignity. Ruin is not the end. It is the open space where we can build something new, something of our own. And this construction does not require great deeds. It happens in the everyday, in the way we face a Monday, in the way we treat a stranger, in the way we react when everything goes wrong. Creating meaning is a constant, silent, personal work. And the more we distance ourselves from others' expectations, the closer we get to our own voice. But to live this way, conscious, present, the author of oneself, one must take a final step, the hardest of all, to stop seeking meaning outside, to abandon the hope for an answer that comes from above, from outside, from the other, and to begin to see the void not as an enemy, but as a space for creation, as fertile ground where freedom can finally blossom. And it is about this last crossing, about how to accept the void as liberation and not as condemnation, that we will talk now in the final part. Because it is at this point that Camus' philosophy transforms not only into reflection but into living practice, into real courage, into radical freedom. When we finally stop searching for a cosmic meaning, a final explanation, a definitive justification for human suffering, something strange happens. Instead of despair, we feel relief. Relief because at last, we no longer carry the weight of an impossible expectation. Relief because we no longer have to pretend that everything makes sense. Because deep down, you know that much of what you have lived, pain, loss, injustices, never had a greater reason. The truth is that existence is chaotic, indifferent, and relentless. But this doesn't have to be a death sentence. It can be a starting point. The void, that meaningless space where we once projected our hopes, can become fertile ground. A clean terrain, free from the lies we were told about purpose, success, salvation. It is there, in that devastated land, that true freedom is born. Freedom to be who you are, not what others expect you to be. Freedom to choose consciously, to act with presence, to live with intensity, knowing that each moment is all there is. Albert Camus was not a nihilist. He did not say that life is worth nothing. He said that because it is worth nothing in an objective sense, it can come to be worth everything in a subjective sense. It can be worth exactly what you decide it is worth. You define the game. You set the rules. This is not little. This is the greatest act of rebellion possible in a world that constantly tries to program you, silence you, shape you. Living without guarantees, without dogmas, without a promised happy ending is not a condemnation. It is a chance. The chance to live authentically, to be present, to create beauty where there are ruins, to make your own existence an act of art. And this awareness, this serene revolt in the face of the absurd, is what Camus proposes as the pinnacle of human dignity. Now, the choice is yours. You can continue living on autopilot, anesthetized, pretending that everything makes sense. Or you can embrace the absurd and live with courage. There is no script. There is no destination. There is only the now, and what you decide to do with it. If this message has touched you in some way, I invite you to comment below. What have you decided to do with your now? Write. Share your revolt, your doubt, your impulse to live, even without guarantees. And more importantly, stay with us. The next video is essential to deepen this journey even further. You have already begun to awaken. Now, move forward, because real transformation only happens when you continue. And the next step is crucial.